If you want to play some games, if you want to show off some games, get some feedback, then you can come and do that. Okay, so we encourage you to bring your prototypes. If they're not finished, that's awesome. Okay, come in, bring your stuff, get some feedback, have a good time. Okay. Now, how this usually goes is at 7 o'clock we get started with a bunch of show and tell speakers. Okay, so we've got 3 speakers tonight. They're going to have 10 minutes. No. Oh, all right. Gotcha. Well, we always have interesting technical challenges. Corbin. We have an industry speaker. Unfortunately, this time you have me. Okay. So I'm going to be talking about indie game horror. I hope you look forward to it. But in the meantime, do you think we're ready to go? The audio? You know, I think actually, isn't there like a button to turn this down? Something? I thought there was a volume.
That's how.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Okay, but
So-
how does it hear to people online? How does it sound to people online? Do they still hear the echo?
I don't think so.
Good.
So this is actually not just a microphone. This isn't a microphone. It's also a speaker. Okay. So I turned down the volume on it. It's the owl. Anyone seen one of these? It's $1,000. It's $1,000, and when you turn it on, it'll hoot at you. It's super cute. Anyway, all right. That's right. Okay, everyone. Before we begin, does anyone have any community announcements you'd like to make? Nathan?
Start on today. Released a technical preview for Sins of Solar Empire 2. If you pre-order, you can check it out. Sins was huge. You'll love it.
Heck
A lot
yeah.
of pew-pew and ships and
Check it out, everyone. Stardock, our biggest game studio in the state, right there in Plymouth, making super, super cool stuff. Any other comments or community announcements?
And we're hired.
And they're hiring too. Heck yeah, any junior or associate dev roles or game designer? Always. All right. Yep, so go to Stardock's website and check out those opportunities, okay? Any other comments or community announcements?
Tomorrow, University of Southern California is having a online thing for people interested in going to grad school there. If you're interested, I can send you the info on it.
Awesome.
I can just post
Awesome.
it if anybody wants me to. Yeah.
Awesome. Jeremy Bond, co-organizer here, is at the number one in the Midwest game dev program at MSU.
Yeah, number one public school.
Excellent.
Yeah, there you go.
Very good. So please talk to Jeremy about any educational or academic topics you might have. Okay. Otherwise, our first speaker is up on deck, and it is Matthew Page with Decaton. So go ahead. You've got 5 minutes, Matthew. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome, much appreciated. How's everybody doing tonight?
Hey.
Awesome. So I'm a little nervous, it's my first time here, but hey, I appreciate it. So what I'm here to do is present the game that I've been working on for the last year and a half with a team of mine called Decaton. So let's get it started. It's a sci-fi JRPG where you play as a young woman trying to establish herself in the field of artificial intelligence, all while her employer is stealing her work. We're going to be looking at a single-player game with traditional turn-based combat, like the old school Final Fantasy, with a little bit of mix of the modern elements of Persona 5. And personally, I like Final Fantasy 9, so there you go from there. We're going to start off by looking at PC ports and be able to expand onto consoles with various licenses, but that requires funding, and you'll see why. Let's check it out. The setting is looking at roughly 20 years into an alternate future where artificial intelligence constructs, known as icons, are commonly used. Our hero Jasmine, that's her right there, has been researching into what she believes is the next step of evolution in the field, but stumbles across a mass conspiracy that places a target on her back. She's got to find a way to succeed in her career, maintain her safety, and balance her social life. She's impeded by her controlling fiancé, who's got other plans for her. So, there's 3 pillars of this game that I'm going to be focusing on: socialization, exploration, and good old combat. So for socialization, Jasmine herself has 4 social skills: confidence, compassion, expertise, and persuasion. She herself levels up. You put your stats into these points. They give you extra boons during combat, as well as when you're interacting with people, such as building up social bonds with other people, and engaging in dialogue bosses, which are different from normal turn-based combat. Exploration, you get your whole view of what's in a normal JRPG world, but as well as the digital world where the icons reside. So from there, we also are going to have a feature which is jukebox mode. You find songs throughout the game that's inside the game, and let's say that you don't want the traditional combat song, just push L1, R1, swap it out, play whatever you want. And if we have the technology to be able to put in any song that you want, there you go. You are in control of your audio experience for this. Now, good old combat's needed for these types of games. You can be able to build and customize your icons through different cores and equipment setups, as well as using a point-buy system to implement the active and passive skills for your individual units within combat. Additionally, there are certain enemies that have multiple parts on them, which we use as the limb system, which can tear them apart and use to change the tide of combat to your advantage. Now, all of that is what the game is about, but in reality, I'm here for a different purpose. I personally want to take this game to the next level and be serious about it. Many people start an indie game, it's cool, it's fun, it's 30 minutes, you forget about it. I don't want that. I personally want to aim higher. I also want to challenge the audience to think outside of traditional tropes. You have a game with a black woman on it. Pretty cool. There's more to the experience than just being black. The game has artificial intelligence. Pretty common for that to be the villain. That's played out. Well, how about we change the tune on that one? I'm here to grow my team. We've got 3 so far. I want to be able to do more than that. To acquire this, we need funding, networking, and you guys as well. So personally, I don't think there's any obstacles in life. I just think there's paths on the way to victory. So from here, let's have one of you lucky people come up, and we're just going to give a quick sliver of Decaton.
Oh, cool.
Volunteers?
Go on up. So how do I get the audio to play?
So hopefully the audio will come through.
Let me unmute my computer. How about that? Yeah. Or will it come through?
Oh, yeah, I think I'm gonna unmute you. Let me see.
No, server mute the microphone. Oh.
Turn in the volume down.
So I don't need to adjust the audio on my laptop itself?
Let's try cranking the audio up on your laptop
That's
for me real
probably
fast.
the easiest.
That is going to be the easiest.
Yeah.
That would definitely.
But now I can hear you guys. So do you want me to mute the stream?
You're good now.
All right. Press A to start. Have fun.
All right.
If you got any questions while you're playing, just let me know.
Through there.
And if you guys have any questions about the project, what you're seeing, or the future, hit me up. Let's talk.
The owl's picking it up.
We could have it come through the TV.
He'd have to reshare his screen
Gotcha.
and only share the application of the game.
So which portions did you build? Was art, engineering, design, all of it?
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little?
Which parts are you doing? Are you doing the art, the engineering, the design, the pitching?
I am the director, even though I send out the core of what's going to be sent to the team members. I help out, and more so lately, as we've been doing this, I'm more so on the business side. More engineers, or specifically programmers, artists, and writers, definitely useful. So every member on my team has say in how the project is being formed. It's not just a Matthew show, it's a communal experience.
All right, 5 minutes for more questions. Questions?
What roles are you trying to fill right now?
Right now, I'd like to get an additional programmer. The current guy that we have is excellent, but he also has a full-time job, and actually everybody on the team currently has a full-time job. With that as a balancing act, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Cool.
Can you like walk around or anything?
There are other features in the game that are actually complete. We have the dialogue bosses complete, exploration, item synthesis, point buy, stat allocation, the whole works. Everything does function properly. I just want to be able to show that quick sliver.
That was awesome.
Could you repeat your question again, please?
Yeah. What roles are you trying to fill right now?
Additional programmers, artists, writers. Yes.
I apologize if I missed it. I think you said you have funding available, and so.
We're seeking funding.
Oh, okay. And so how are you going to go about that? Kickstarter or something else?
I believe the initial step that I should take is actually to look into grants first to see what
Okay.
it's like to approach it from the professional aspect.
Yep.
Then utilize the initial funding. I've been coming out of pocket up front for the last year and a half.
Sure.
Get the grants, get more things to be able to create a true demo, to then place on Kickstarter. Use the money raised from Kickstarter to seek additional investments.
Awesome.
Are there any additional questions? What's up?
If someone was interested in joining, where would they get your contact info?
Let's talk after this, huh?
What's like? So you said that you're constantly trying to grow the game.
Mhm.
like scope-wise, what's like the ultimate end game of your scope, right?
I may not be able to give an exact pinpoint of 20 hours, 30 hours, 40 hours, for there are elements of the game design that's baked into a JRPG. I view that some people who create indie games aim so high that the project falls apart. What I'm going to focus on is quality in and of itself first, and let the game decide how long it needs to be. Any other questions? What's up?
Sorry, I forgot.
No, it's all good. Hey, we're all nervous here. It's totally fine.
So, what would you consider to be like the competitor products that you're like sort of basing your product off of, or that you would see it going up against?
I think with the release of Sakurai's projects on YouTube, as well as the more availability of Game Maker, Unreal, and Unity, it could be anybody. I'm not afraid of competition because we're going to focus on making the best product possible. It's going to blow everybody else out of the water. Let's hear it.
How do you plan on promoting your game? What avenues do you plan on?
I believe social media such as Twitter and TikTok will be helping out, as well as seeking professionals who are in marketing to get their expertise. Though I feel confident within the product that I'm creating, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I have all the answers, and there is no problem with seeking assistance where it's needed. Anybody else? Well, awesome. You guys are amazing.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matthew.
Great job, man.
All right. So next up, we have Nathan Hainish of Stardock. Nathan,
Are you a regular?
Nathan is actually doing a really cool presentation. It's a sequel to his one from last week. Do you remember when Nathan presented last week? Yep.
No, I don't remember. Tell me about it.
More content on stable diffusion, DALL-E, and how that kind of technology can be used in a game dev context.
That stuff's awesome. I've been using it for certain backgrounds and other elements as well.
I used it for my course icons. It was really cool. Yes. When you're ready, stop streaming.
Turn it off. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Very much appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for coming.
Good job, man. Seriously.
Okay, our next speaker is ready. Let's go.
Sure am. Hi, my name is Nathan Hainish. Although I'm with Stardock, I'm not representing Stardock tonight. This is a little project I can do on the side that won't become all-consuming. We'll be talking about practical techniques for exploiting stable diffusion in 2D games. Yes, I'll explain what stable diffusion is later. Okay, so flashback to last month when I did a different presentation. We're basically taking a 84 below-the-root game, kind of trying to modernize the graphics using AI art. So the process I used there, basically I went through, took each different segment, ran it through an image converter with stable diffusion, and built out a nicer looking version. Basically just take the original gameplay, keep the readability, make it, modern-ish. But, a lot of that process was pretty tedious and really needed to be sped up. So I took my screen renderer and said, you know what, the thing that's taking my time is breaking it into pieces. So I said, you know what, just click a button on each section, put them together, export it as raw data. Well, that was fast. You can go through a screen in about a minute, but then I got to take the raw data, go into GIMP, get the alignment right, get the format right, get it out as a ping. You're talking 3 or 4 minutes of really tedious work to do that. Well, that's a track. Better approach, take a tool like ImageMagick, which is free and open source and will read and write like every stinking image format on the planet, and it's easily scriptable. So I'm going to interpret here. You run Magic, right? Read in the image at a certain bit depth and resolution, scale it up, set it to the right version of ping, because there's a bunch of versions, set it back on the black, flatten it, save it back out. You can run that on a directory in seconds. Super fast, So now I'm at 2 minutes, take a screen, break it out into the pins. Pretty good. Next step in the process, as I discussed last month, was to get a good conversion, I really need noise. So I gotta take just the lit pixels and add some noise around them. So select the background, invert it, grow, add the noise. Again, pretty tedious. Works well, but pretty tedious. Well, it turns out, GIMP, where I was doing all those steps, accepts Python scripts. Take the steps, put them in a script, run in a directory, 30 seconds later, everything's converted to a noisy version, which you can then feed into Stable Diffusion. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can run Stable Diffusion. There's different UIs. You can run it off the command line. I'm using the automatic 1111 version. There's a URL there. Seriously, like, take a picture of that and go there. Super easy to install. You go to GitHub, you download it, you unzip, you grab a Stable Diffusion model. So that's kind of like the floating point numbers that are the results of the training of the neural network. Drop them in a directory. It's being updated constantly. 1.5 kind of leaked out last week. Run a batch file, and you can get to it through URL on your own computer. All right, so here I took one of the grunge, or the big trees. I figured out a prompt that seemed about right. It's like large oak tree side view photograph, twiddle with the denoising, so little too far to the left and it stays the old image, a little too far to the right and you get like clowns. You got to kind of balance that to get the right number. And that kind of looks like what I want. So that's pretty good. Do that with all the different elements in the scene, and you get a pretty good looking screen. But when you go to do like 2 screens, or 3 screens, or 4 screens, this happens. That looks okay, and that looks okay. Together, they don't look okay. Well, how are we going to fix this problem? Well, it turns out there's this thing called in-painting, which the last UI I used a month ago didn't do, but this one does, as of a few weeks ago. We'll basically start with the first screen as a seed, grab the bottom couple of lines, stick them on the next screen, say, leave these lines alone, and kind of use that like a crystal to grow out the rest. So, do the first one, take the lines, build a mask, take the same prompt and the same random number seed, pump it in there with image to image, in-painting, and now I've got 2 screens worth of trees that look kind of contiguous. Awesome. So we put it all together, and obviously there's things that could be better. The leaves look a little funky. The rope, while contiguous, doesn't feel quite right. But there's something real there to dig into and to be expanded upon.
I have a question.
Can we hold up like 30 seconds?
Yeah, 20 seconds remain.
20 seconds. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about how to automate this further. I'd love to throw this in Excel and just be like, here's all my screens, hit a button and reprocess them. I don't like the art style. I'm going to pick a different art direction, reprocess all of them. Animation, kind of tough so far, not had good luck with it. I'd like to hear ideas there. And how could you apply this to your projects? Seriously though, try it yourself. You can do this. Like tonight, I've got it on my laptop. All right, you were first with the answer.
So what's really exciting is, so like certain games, like Doom, put all the textures in a single file called a WAD file.
Yep.
Could you just like write a script that basically goes into the WAD file, pulls out the textures, does this to them, and throws them back in?
Yes.
Now you got high def Doom.
Yes.
There you go.
You'd have to come up with prompts for everything. And there's a certain amount of like stir mix taste. So that's why I say like take the WAD, break it apart, put it in a bunch of lines in an Excel sheet, figure out the prompts you like and the numbers you like, get the results and say like, I don't like this demon face, tweak with that, hit a button.
Yeah, there's different noise seeds basically.
But
Kind of like
that
the
is
Minecraft world, like you change the seed.
very, very much a doable thing. All right, I think the guy next to you is next.
I'd say I would be thinking a similar thing. You would have to thinking that because the how you compress all your screens and assets together, it changes the final product. I would separate sort of all my assets by layers. Like obviously you'd have your props in the foreground or other things like that. Have it all in a certain directory or some other tagging system, and like you said, you could have a database file or an Excel spreadsheet that has all the settings that you use already set up. Or if you wanted to get fancy with it, it wouldn't be just in one. It wouldn't be just all in one line. You would have a comma value denoting what the object is, and then you would have another column that says, okay, this is the art style I want to use. No, high res, masterpiece, cartoon style, so forth.
You have like a map of seeds.
Yeah.
File name, feature name, and the seed number you change.
Yeah.
And you can almost like sit here and imagine like what this is going to look like in a month.
Wow.
Colin, you're up.
I assume that you've also found the 1.5 in painting model.
Yes, which kind of leaked out, and I grabbed before, in fear that it might go away. But yes, I definitely am using that.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
I know there are more questions. This guy.
Why do you only generate one screen at a time as opposed to building it out with bigger chunks of the game?
That's a good question. So basically, the approach I've taken is figure out how to do a thing manually, figure out how to do it faster. Move to the, so I got one screen going pretty fast, right? Go to two screens manually. All right, what are the steps that could be sped up there? And what we're seeing here is, as of Saturday, what steps I had managed to automate. But the intention is, like I said, have a spreadsheet, hit a button, do the whole thing, come back in an hour.
Yeah, going off that, I was gonna say, like, take whole texture packs and just put them in and say, edit it, on how normal. But I guess it's not there yet.
Not quite, but soon.
I feel this is kind of a stupid question, but can you like tweak the AI to make it like kind of change like the colors or something? Because
Yes.
I feel like it looks really good, but I mean, and maybe it's meant to be this way, but the colors seem a bit muted.
Yeah, and that is one of the concerns I had with this version. That's where partially the denoising level came in, where if I dropped it down a little bit, it would keep more of the original color, but then maybe it looks too much like Lego blocks. So there's a lot of tweaking. There's also a lot of run it 64 times, pick the one that I like, and then iterate from there.
You somehow like inject as a seed like Van Gogh's Starry Night and make Starry Nightify the whole game.
Yes, and people are definitely doing those things.
Can you use it to do character designs?
So one thing I did this weekend was we're starting a new D&D campaign, right?
Yeah.
And so I took my friends' heads and I took their character descriptions and I said roll 64 and I said, that looks like a good, Hobbit rogue Jim. Here's your character sheet.
Because one of the things that I've been tooling around with is how to expedite the process to get ideas to concept artists. It won't look as good as the concept artist doing it per se, but it could get the general direction. Yeah, I really like this and this about this thing that I generated. Could be an interesting idea.
Yeah, I definitely see this dramatically accelerating the concept art process.
Yeah.
And leading to just better results. I've seen that process go horrible directions on a number of projects.
Yeah.
You can really drill in a lot faster, a lot better.
Any final questions? Final question.
One more. Is Stable Diffusion like free and open
Yes,
source? Oh.
free and open source. Free to us.
So what do you think Dolly 2 team feels about that?
I don't know the answer to that question. Threatened,
okay.
perhaps?
Yes.
I do have it running if anyone wants to see later. And I'll very briefly go back to the URL. If you just look for automatic 1111, you'll find it.
You'll also be able to find it on YouTube later when we post this live stream.
That's right.
Excellent. All right, Nathan, well done. Thank you so much. Okay. You're going to share your screen on Discord, and anything that you share will be seen in the Discord audience individually. Excellent. Okay, so next up, everyone. Next up, we have Jeremy Bond presenting XN telemetry, tracking players through time.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So I literally just fixed this a minute ago. Turns out if you're writing editor extensions in Unity, watch out. If you open two inspectors at the same time, which is a common trick that I use, it can be really bad. Basically, your variables can be shown in one place and different from what they are in another place, is I guess the way to say that. All right, so here's the thing. As you know, I've been building a lot of tools lately, or you might know, I'm building a lot of tools lately. And one that we had been working on was trying to track players. For example, if we open up, these are some levels that my students are working on right now in my level design class at Michigan State University, and they're using a this third-person level editor that was initially created by my former grad student Aaron Solon, who is now Bungie. Yeah, it's Bungie. Bungie, right? Yeah. Okay, great. Cool. Thanks. And he, he's done some really cool things. So here's the little level editor, which you can't see because I'm not sharing my whole screen. I was trying to be efficient. All right. It's going great. There we go. All right. Yeah, so here. Thanks, Corbin. Making life tough for you.
No
right,
worries.
so, this is the level editor thing. It's got all sorts of different bits in it. But you can see that when it eventually loads, you got a little character and they move around. Kind of like Mario. You're a raccoon. You like picking up trash. You go put trash into here. There's things like these sweet moving platforms that you see in the ocean here, which are kind of like waves that draw me through the water. It's kind of nifty. That's actually a moving platform there too. So anyway, just to show, the reason I'm showing you this, so you saw the path I took here. Great. All right. I'm going to stop. So in the background, what this has done is it actually logged my telemetry of where I went to the server. So now I can open up here in the Managers and Essentials, which every student has in their thing. I can go to Telemetry Viewer and click to load the data and get telemetries for the scene. And then I can load all of them and I can actually see where players have gone, including where I just went as I was standing around, and then I went over this way. Right, so that's, yeah. And it looks like maybe I pulled the wrong version, but anyway, the new version of this can actually track 4 players at a time. So these are just little bots that, they literally are just on the nav mesh. They're choosing where to go on the nav mesh. And sometimes they stop. Whatever, I'm just going to let them run for a little bit. Now, I can actually track that data. And I can see where each of them went over time, which is pretty cool. I also have the ability to, in these telemetry settings, set up specific things that will happen, or a way to see these things. And this is where I had opened up the other inspector that had caused me trouble. So let's see if I can do that again. So now I'm going to go to the hierarchy, select my telemetry thing, and lock this inspector, and then just select something else, right? So hopefully this will work now. Yeah, there you go. And now if you go in and select the settings here, you can actually say, oh, okay, every time there's a stop, I want to show one of those upward pointing arrows that Unity likes. And look, there, now it's really long. And I can override the color if I want. For stop, it's probably useful to have a cube. And we'll make it translucent because we don't want it to block everything, right? There you go. So now when you, you can see what's going on in your thing.
60 seconds.
60 seconds. All right, great. And these can be all sorts of things. So turn here, you can make it text that says turn when it turns. You can make it an icon and set the icon size. And as you saw, you can just play through it and watch it happen over time. So this allows you to see where your players go in your level. Now, this is freely available, but I've not quite figured out how to hand off the database side, because this actually records to the cloud. It's very, very basic. It's PHP MySQL. I can give you the SQL setup query and the and the scripts. But if you're interested in this, I've recently packaged it up and sent it to my students. And if it ever just doesn't draw, it's because you have two inspectors open and they got confused about which one's authoritative. So you close the two inspectors, quit Unity, launch Unity again, open an inspector, and then it works, which is what I did over the last 15 minutes. So anyway, that's it.
All right, time. Well done. Good
All
job.
right.
Okay. So 5 minutes. 5 minutes for questions.
Yeah, Josh.
So with those custom events, could you track things like a character picking up a cube or something?
Thanks for asking me a question that allows me to show something I forgot to talk about. You're the best, man. All right. So all it takes to do the custom statement is this. So you just say, okay, xntelemetry.telemetry cloud multiplayer.log, and it's got a singleton, sort of. And you just put in what comment you want it to have, and then pass in the transform that you want it to be related to. And the other thing, of course, I forgot to talk about was the top half of, let me close this one, sorry. Yeah, close tab. The top half of this telemetry sets up these trackers. And so you can see here, there's a tracker for each one of these characters, and it has a position transform, the rotation transform. A lot of times in first-person games, you'll have the camera that rotates a separate transform from the feet of the player. So that's what that's in there for. But you pass in just the tag and the transform, and it figures out which one of these 4 IDs it is, and logs it as that ID. The data itself is actually very basic, and I probably have it in BB Edit because I've been working on this. Yeah, here, this is what the data looks like. That's it. It's just like, this is where when you set the colors, it sets the colors, and then there's start. And it's literally got X, or actually the time, X, Y, Z, rotation X, rotation Y, rotation Z, and then the new ID for the thing. Underscores are just, it logs the position every half a second, and you can set how often that is. And then here it logs a turn, and you can see that as this goes through, mostly it's the underscores, but then you'll get a stop or a turn or whatever, just as the thing that I was trying to show. And that stop and turn is what you set up in the viewer that allows you, or sorry, in the settings that you can set up so you can view them in special ways. Because I didn't want my students to have to hard code that stuff in the on inspector GUI or whatever, on scene GUI function. That was a really long answer. Sorry. Yes.
How many data points can you theoretically hold right now?
How long is a medium text in a database? Because a small text, or the largest varchar you can have is 65535 characters, and that works out to 13.5 minutes if you're recording a single person. But the medium text is much bigger than that. So I'm not being efficient, I'm just tracking everything. Yes?
Is there a reason you went with SQL instead of a time series database?
Because I barely know SQL, and I don't know. One of the things I said in my talk about developing tools in education is go with what you know, and if there's a better option, you can always switch to the better option later. Yeah. There was one, yes?
This might be clear to somebody with more experience than me, but what might this be used for?
That's a great question. One thing that I have used it for in particular is in my level design class, showing students where players are going through their level, right? So there's one that we are not doing this semester, but we did last year, which was a first-person thing with a grappling hook. And players, the designers were able to see, okay, 75% of the players went through the way I wanted them to, but there's one person figured out you could jump up on this wall and grapple over to here, and so it really helps you find what parts of your level are being used and not used. There's something that Naughty Dog did in Uncharted 2 where they tagged every time a player jumped and did not grab a ledge. And so they'd open up their levels and they'd see all these jumps where people thought they could grab something, and then they sent in the environmental artists to make it look less like they could grab something there. So, but you can kind of do whatever you want with it. Yeah.
So do you have like a pool data like button in there where like you're looking at a scene and you're like, hey, I want to deliver this scene, and there's like a ton from like 100 different users on the cloud, and you can all like look at it at once. Is that like set up already? Or?
Yeah, yeah. So here, what I've got is like, it's a tap to load telemetry data, connect to server. So here you can choose which version. So I do that for like releases and stuff. And then you can say, oh, and I want to load like scene. It automatically picks the right scene because I have students with all these different scenes. And then you get all of them, and you can click all and see everything here, which looks insane for this because they're just randomly moving. But in my students' levels that have people intentionally move through them, they actually see where they go.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Last
I'm
question.
taking that time.
Is there a reason you're limited to 4?
You're not limited to 4.
Okay, cool. Just the way you said it,
Yeah.
it sounded like you were like, yeah, we just got 4.
No. It's just 4 because I put 4 in this list, and you can add as many things to the list as you want. I mean, it definitely will run into draw problems eventually, right? Like you can't draw an hour of data for 1 million characters, but you know, whatever. That's not what it was designed for. So.
Awesome. All right,
Awesome.
Jeremy,
Thanks.
thank you.
All right.
All right, a quick announcement. Did anyone leave a like this? Gosh, this looks like it has
That's a
like
CIA drive.
yeah.
that's
Something important is on here, I'm sure. Did anyone leave it up here? No? Okay, let me know if you did, and you can come up and claim it later. In about 15 minutes, we're going to come back with our main talk for the night. Until then, please grab some pizza if there's more left. The bathrooms are around the right. And please, get to know the people around you. You can check their name tag if you forgot their name, and ask them what they're playing these days, okay? We'll see you in 15. You lose someplace else. Except you. The rest of you don't. You're not my dad. Really? It's moving.
The crowd over there huddled together. Sorry. Am I gonna be on camera for them? Probably. Doesn't matter. No idea. Alright, cool. The camera's just grabbing anybody right now. It's like, hey, where's people? How's it going, Austin? Doing alright.
Yeah. But what is new? I'm just going to talk I want to see where people are getting stuck, where people are dying.
So like I have like these style. I mean, I'm not sure how the name is background. Like, one of
let's get going. Actually, no, wait. This is all my, oh my god, nobody's on this. What's my bad? It's not a frame thing. No, it is. I just trying to make it where the students didn't have to get into there. What I added like these kind of dummy variables for things like whenever you did, you're trying to grab a graphics card, show her where you had a video for so yeah, you could have to just say, oh, like tell us, and then it's always like, oh, well, draw the print points and then use that point. Yeah, I'm Jeremy. Hey, Alex. Yeah. Like if people want me to share it, I got the Unity project, I also package up the PHP and my SQL side. Yes, there is a local file version, but that is the original one. You don't get any like, oh, fine, this version of the software is seen and pull it automatically. So I did have a version so it's kind of sloppy.
We are adjusting everybody on Twitch. Give me just a moment. This thing's awesome. It's long as hell, but the newest one I want super bad. It's just a regular drawing. It's cool as hell. I have no idea. I bought this one forever. But when it takes to, so the older version, you have to manually go in and select the categories. But like when your finger doesn't right, so under the tip of the hand does. It's super cool. The newest one is only like $250, but you gotta buy the pen separately. It is really remarkable. Go ahead. I love it. That's awesome. Right. So yeah. Writing notes, drawing. It's great for you. See you later. It's all busted. I'm getting a new one. The new line is you get all the stickers you want. How's it going, man? Doing really good. Oh. Hi, Austin. You know what really drew me here is the fact that we haven't talked about indie board. Like, I could tell that you were like working on your side project. I also like pretty much work on a very similar project. Yeah. I'm excited to see your presentation. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Also, I got an apartment.
Awesome. You have to come out with So the Twitch stream is getting this thing right here. Do you ever screen share? They now have this. It's gonna be full screen in a minute. I'll just double check the Twitch stream on my phone. I can't touch anything on my computer while we're doing this method. This method locks my computer down. I can't Twitch or so, and I'm gonna find a better solution for the What? Oh, he's still here?
Your company progress.
Okay! Ladies and gentlemen! Ladies and gentlemen, come on back!
By the way, nerd.
Oh, that's the classic. That's like classic. I think it's like you have like power shoes or something. All right. Well, everyone, I unfortunately I think this is actually probably the end of the event. It's a did anyone see anyone messing with my computer at the front during the break? Anyone? Like yeah, I'm sorry. I don't really know what happened. I lost all my files, and someone deleted them. I don't know, like if someone was messing with my computer or hardware issue or what. Let me show you. Let me show you. Let me show you real quick. I'll get this plugged in.
Oh no. I think he's serious. Austin would never. He's a very serious person.
My desktop is just totally blank. Totally blank. Right? And like that's where I keep all my files and I thought, what the fuck? What is this? What is this?
This is a mystery file.
I think we might still be
definitely
hacked.
open it.
Open it.
Oh yeah, run an application you don't know.
Team, should we give it a shot?
Yeah.
All right.
You gotta run everything.
Okay. Well, you know what? It's an old laptop. Okay. And we're just
Somebody
gonna
on
find
Discord told
out.
me to run that one.
Oh, really?
Privileges.
All right.
What is it?
Okay. So let's go ahead and run this right here. Let's see what happens.
Oh yeah.
Has anyone seen this executable before?
Oh.
Like I have no idea what's going on. It's gonna steal my Discord credentials. It's gonna steal
It happens one time. It did happen one time.
I was in the office when I heard about it. Is it because someone ran a random executable they found?
I'd say the title was accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slide. Those are woods.
Team, like, I don't know if there's any coming back after I hit that play button. Like, you really want to do this?
Yeah. I think you would.
Okay.
I don't see any other option.
Figure you have my team's problem.
Maybe this is how I get my files back. We gotta figure this out.
There you go. Dude, go down the slide. Slide.
We're really short. Howdy. That was exciting. I like the sound. Again.
I can't.
This is definitely.
Why are we doing it the third time?
We can still quit.
Can we?
Into the unknown.
No.
That's what you get.
Uh-oh.
Stuck in there for a while.
I don't know why.
I got a horror skin.
Oh wait.
Okay, it's got some battery left. We're okay.
Oh. Again. I would keep sliding.
Yeah, it's only getting better.
You need to collect 8 sheets of paper.
Austin, have you tried going up the slide? That was like...
It's a good idea. It's a good idea. All right, up the slide.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's what is that up there? No, you can't go in this slide?
It's one of the pages.
Good.
It's the Ockfield News. Small talent mourning as mass missing persons case at local park continues to go unsolved. A detective working on the case sheds light on its peculiarity, stating, "It's as if they disappeared into thin air."
It's the backslides.
Don't worry,
this is not a
Down the slide.
in the middle of the forest.
Like does this park look familiar to anyone else? Like, I'm pretty sure this is one of Ann Arbor's like 1,000 parks.
Odds are good.
Austin's not playing right now.
I gotta get my files back. This is serious. Like, if we can't clear this, the lecture is finished.
How much? We all get kicked out of Spark.
It's like 9 o'clock anyway.
Let's go again. Yeah, I'm fine.
what's the airplane doing?
Airplane.
Oh my god! Who's the mother, right? What the fuck?
I think we know who has my files.
I think those were your files.
Yeah.
Where did they go?
That's like a fun slide.
Awesome, we gotta get your files.
Screaming through it.
Oh shit.
We're going to hell.
If It's a long slide.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, we're
Oh no.
Okay, now we're in the back room.
Yo, we got hops.
If you do it with the wrong cadence, you get wrecked.
Yeah, can we go back?
Right, you gotta have the perfect timing.
Well, if there's nothing.
I'm sure it's fine.
The uncomfortable look back.
This is the best part.
No, I do remember this part.
Imagine if you slow crawl this entire way.
This is like another.
Hey! Yeah! Oh, it's more stairs. Look at another slide.
Do you think this goes all the way back up to the other side?
Oh wow. Are we in like the Yucatan?
Let's make sure they're okay.
No.
Austin, you're fine. You gotta go after it.
You gotta go after it.
Those are at least like half of my files.
We should jump off after.
The presentation might be in the other half. You have to carry on.
Oh, you're not gonna jump off.
Like any second, we're gonna take this guy over.
Blood for the blood god.
Hey, blue's good. Oh yeah, let that thing free.
I think those are the rest of my files, actually.
Awesome.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Why? Absolutely. Why would you
Child.
I don't. My parents told me not to interact with strange fascinating objects.
Oh, see, it's helping.
Wow. Yeah, but yours isn't strange. Yours is very.
Oh yeah.
The files.
Oh,
no, the files.
jump in after him.
I don't know if the files are working.
Yeah, I'm gonna go turn
Back up the slide.
Yay!
Let's go! Wait, did you get your files?
Oh man!
Where's the files?
His files were the slide all along.
Real files of the friends of
I feel like we got skibballs.
Wait, where are the files?
All right, team. Like, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to get the. Wait. No, wait. My presentation is through Google. Fantastic. Give me a moment. I need to share the application now. But like I don't. Let me say something. Like even being in a room full of people, right, and there are jokes flying like that. That game still gets me a bit because I'm gonna give you a spoiler. I actually played that before. And that monster is real. Like if you go too slowly through there, it can get you. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay. Which one?
Yep.
All right. Very good. Very good. My name is Austin Yarger, everyone. It's really good to see you. Thank you all so much for coming. If you don't know who I am, like I run IGDA Arbor with Corbin Reeves and Jeremy Bond, and we've been doing it for quite a while. I contributed to Sims at EA and some of EA's mobile tech stack across a few summers. I worked at Facebook for a bit. I currently teach as a lecturer at the University of Michigan. I teach the game dev and the XR courses there. I obviously do the IGDA and Arbor stuff. And I have my own little startup I'll talk to you about at the very end, Arbor Interactive, doing some horror stuff, okay? But what I really want to do is today I want to talk, oh gosh, I just want to talk about indie horror. Because, like, I play a lot of games these days, and the genre is just, it makes me feel something, right? I've seen so many games, I've played so many games. Indie horror still surprises me sometimes. And I'll tell you, actually, I want to hear a bit from you. What do you think of that game, right? And be honest, it's not the right, atmosphere for us to be playing a game like that. But what do you think? What struck you about it? Yes, right there.
The crawl movement mechanic and tension.
Yeah, there's tension, right? If you mistime that, it's fairly precise. If you mess that up, you lose a lot of time. You move slowly. That monster gets closer. With headphones on, you can really hear it. Yes?
The beginning reminded me of like a minimalistic retro PT where you're just kind of looping the same area, but something's different every time.
Absolutely. What an incredible use of assets, right? One playground, but all that magic. Yes?
Yeah, it made use of a lot of the horror tactics of withholding information. It starts you out with a relatively normal-looking situation.
Yeah.
You slowly notice that something's wrong.
That's
you
right.
Finally see evidence of something being seriously wrong, but you don't actually know what's going on.
Absolutely
Like
right.
there's a build up to the
yes.
to the crazy slide, so you know something is seriously wrong.
Yeah.
And then when you hit and then it's also small details like feed them. What
right.
are you feeding?
That's right. There aren't a whole lot of jump scares in this game. They're very tasteful, very unassuming. It grows on you, and then it attacks. Yes. Last one.
Yeah, kind of on that a little bit. I liked when it it showed you the way forward, but the only way forward was like something that was kind of scary and awful, like feed them or release the chains, like what's going to happen. But it's like the only thing you can do.
That's right. That's right. It's a very, very impressive game. It is one of my favorites of this past year, right? Despite its humble scale and size, this game came out of nowhere for me. I saw it randomly on itch.io. Anyone else use itch? Anyone use itch? Yeah. Right? And it just kind of showed up. I didn't know what to expect because when you look at this game, it is just very unassuming, right? It's a slide in the woods. What could that even mean, right? It could mean anything, okay? I, for the longest time, grew up on like AAA horror games, right? I played a lot of games that just had incredible marketing values and production values, that games that were required to sell a ton of copies, games that had to have a certain length, that had to have certain content, right? Games with beautiful, gorgeous visuals, right? Last of Us, Resident Evil. You look at the makers of some of those games, Capcom, right? A public company, they must make a lot of revenue. Well, how to do that? Okay. Well, why not some multiplayer? All right. These games got to have multiplayer, got to sell some copies, right? What about crafting systems? Most of the games will have them. If you're playing a AAA horror game, it's probably going to be 6 hours at least of content. It's going to have a generous checkpoint save system, and that's pretty awesome. You know, I like that, right? A relatively easy default difficulty, right? We got to sell a lot of copies, which means we need it to be accessible, right? We want people to be able to enjoy the game no matter what their skill level. It's awesome stuff. It really is. And it's going to be polished to be fairly smooth, right? To not have a ton of frustration, not have a ton of friction, okay? And it's going to have considerations for the health of the player, right? As much as they might want to scare you, they can't make it too scary. They have to be a little bit careful, okay? Anyone remember this screen when you played a Wii or a GameCube game, right?
Yeah.
And I'd be going on to play like Mario Kart, and I'd see the screen, and I'd be like, Mario Kart, what are you not telling me? Okay? And of course, right, all these games, for the most part, these horror games are going to be rated M. There is a rating above M, but if you go too far above M, no one will sell your game. You can't put your game in retailers, GameStop won't take it. And so, Capcom has some rules they have to play by when it comes to horror. But, you know, a swing set might not be that scary, but you know what's super scary? The people who made this game don't have any of those rules. Okay, they don't have to sell 10 million copies, right? They don't have to make the ESRB happy. They can really do anything. They don't have to make a big launch trailer, okay? They can genuinely surprise you. And that's something I haven't really felt since the days of like Smash Melee. When you didn't know what characters were in the game. You had to play the game to find out, right? Rumors could fly, and you could really just enjoy the surprise, right? A game that had something weird in store for you, okay? By the way, that game, oh, there's more where that came from, right? So not everyone said that you play itch games, that you've been on itch a lot. But horror is one of the most popular things on itch. And every single day, hundreds of horror games come out. And some of these are not the most effective, right? And some of them are absolutely incredible, okay? But all of them have the ability to surprise you and show you something you might not have been looking for, okay? Not something you didn't expect. And that's what still scares me about indie horror as opposed to AAA. You never know quite what you're getting yourself into, okay? So anyway, my lecture objectives for the next like 30 minutes. Oh, and by the way, you know what's really cool about being the guy who takes track of time? So you know when a lecture is going over? I get to tell you. So I can take as much time as I want. All right, but for the next 30 to 40 minutes, what I want to do is I want to take you through a really brief kind of history of indie horror, okay? And this is going to be not the most granular horror, okay? I'm going to take you through some of the really important games that were important, but also like important to me, because I'm going to miss some really important games too, okay? And then my second objective is I want to talk to you a little bit about what horror can offer you, the indie development team. A team that might not have a ton of resources, okay? You can still do amazing things with this genre, okay? This genre is your best friend in many ways. So, it's 2012, and a guy named Mark J. Hadley is just kind of making some games in New Mexico. Hadn't made anything humongous before that. I think he was part of the Homestuck team, doing some audio for them, I believe. And he was looking at a forum called Something Awful. Anyone know about that forum? I hadn't really heard of it, right? And he came across some photos that had been posted that were really just kind of, they just grab you, right? They're very engaging, in part because you look at them, and the more you look, the more you start to see, right? And so, he had been playing some other really cool horror games. He had played a game called Amnesia, The Dark Descent. Anyone heard of that game? Phenomenal game. But you know, it had a bigger team, not a huge team, but a bigger team. They had made several horror games before. Then he thought, you know what, I'm going to take a crack at it. I really like Slender, the character this is. Let's see if we can make a game, okay? And he made a game like this. And I will ask you to be a little bit quiet on this one. And I also want you to take note of the audio, okay? The audio, and what does the game allow you to see? That's the scariest thing I've ever seen during a presentation, actually. Palate cleanser. It's not like the.
Oh, come on.
It's not like the quality is super high, right? Like it's not a good
You might be able to movement in the video.
What's that?
A video that has more movement will take up more data.
Can you play some intermission music while I go grab the YouTube version?
Bunch of nerds.
So your YouTube is working. Huh? Your YouTube is working. Perfect. But his isn't.
Now it's not YouTube. I was hosting on my server.
Oh,
Alright. Intermission finished. You know, if I get you too scared, then Spark is going to be really angry at me. So that's a little break. Okay? Take a breath. Okay, here we go. So that's some footage from Slender, and it's an interesting game, isn't it? It is a game that maybe these days does not seem of much note, but, well, it just, gosh, it's still worth talking about, right? So Slender the 8 Pages was a game that came out, and it was very, very focused, right? It is a game that's very unassuming. In fact, when the game first came out, it didn't even have a title screen. You just opened the game, didn't quite know what it was, and it told you to collect 8 pages. You didn't know there might be a little something following you in those woods, okay? And so you play through the game, and for a long time, potentially up to 10 minutes or more, it is just you kind of walking around in the forest, okay? And there's not a whole lot going on. It lulls you into a sense of, I don't know, boredom, I guess. But not the kind that would get you to quit playing, right? You're looking around the environments, and despite the fact that things might look a little bit simple, the atmosphere is there, right? Particularly after you collect that first page. What happens if you do? What happens when you collect that page? Bum. Bum, right? And you still don't know what it is about this forest, but you can feel it now. There's something wrong about it all, okay? Eventually, you turn around and you see in the distance that someone in the shadows is following you. And I think this monitor is very bright. You can see his entire outline. But when many people play the game, you can see what I'm seeing on the screen. You can see the vague silhouette of a character, but you can't really tell any detail. You can't really understand if it is menacing. And when you look at it, it doesn't move. What also happens when you look at it?
Static.
Yeah, static starts to come in. Things start to go wrong. And we're going to talk about what that does later and why it's there, okay? But the longer you look at it, the more staticky it gets. If you look too long or it gets too close to you, then the game ends, okay? Now, I had been used to, at the time, when I first played this, I've been used to horror, meaning this, right? Phenomenal game, Resident Evil 4. Yeah. Horror, at that point, had been kind of creeping closer and closer to action. You know, action was a much bigger market than horror was, right? And you can know that's still true today. You know, go look at Call of Duty's sales numbers and compare it to Resident Evil 8, and you'll notice that right away. You'll understand why Capcom wanted to do this, okay? But still, there was something magic. There was something just a bit weird about a game that was so humble, so quiet, okay? It had secrets. It could surprise me. This ain't gonna surprise me anymore. But this, I didn't even know what this was, okay? And when it came out, my goodness, a lot of people felt the same. This game was one of the games that launched the careers of a lot of Let's Players. And it's really no mistake why, right? Like, wow, reaction videos became their entire, it's a genre of its own, essentially. The idea was, like, you'd watch your favorite personalities, they would play this game, they would play the game and they would be scary, so they'd get scared, or at the very least they would fake getting scared. And that was, you know, that was about as good, I suppose, right? Slender kind of became a big thing. Everyone knew about Slender Man suddenly, all across the world. And I remember I was going to Michigan at the time. I think I was a sophomore in 2012, and I would see people on Halloween wearing the Slender Man attire, right? And it was really, really cool. It was cool, okay? And this game got about 6 million downloads, and that's only from one of the distributors that you can get this game from. So it's impressive stuff, okay? More impressive is that it seemingly created its own mini-genre, okay? As it turns out, the basic gameplay of Slender Man, where you're moving around an environment, you're trying to collect some hidden objects while dealing with a stalker character, was extremely popular and also very easy to turn around. You could grab any 3D model you wanted, as it turned out. You could grab the Slendy Tubby if you wanted to, plop it in a forest, launch on itch, and get thousands and thousands and thousands of plays, right? You don't even need to take him out of his T-pose, and it still works, okay? Right? And when I say it still works, I'm not joking. I am not joking about that at all, okay? Plop SpongeBob in, don't do anything else. 5 million views. I wish I could go back to that time. It's a bit harder now. And of course, my man Shrek was there as well. Okay? But it's amazing kind of what this game did. And what amazes me is what it accomplished, despite being what it is. A very, very humble game made in a very small amount of time by essentially just one person with a little bit of support, right? It's inspiring stuff. The game, a year later, 2013, Mark J. Hadley teamed up with a bigger studio that came in with professional artists, and they made a much more beautiful version of the game, a very cool version of the game. It's actually tied to the one we just saw, Slender the Arrival. You can check it out on Steam if you want to. A movie came out. It wasn't very good. But it's something to say that this Slender Man became so big, in part because of this breakout game that Sony wanted to try and make a film. Yeah, I was pretty disappointed when this came out. I feel like it should be pretty easy to make a Slender Man film. Not easy, nothing is easy, or especially making a film, any creative work. But I feel like Slender Man should be like Halloween, where the stalker's always in the background of every scene. You're playing Where's Waldo? Oh my God, our character starts talking. He's in the bush, right? It should be like that. Anyway, I'm a bit bitter. However, 2013 wasn't just when Mark J. Hadley released his follow-up to Slender. It was when a person, I don't know, let's just call him Scott, okay? A person named Scott, let's say, who happened to be living in Houston as a cashier at a Dollar General at the time. Well, he had been making games for a while, okay? He had been moonlighting as a game developer, and it was, wait, that's what moonlighting means, right? You do it in your spare time? Yeah, it's pretty appropriate. And he had been working on games for a long time, but just nothing had really worked out. But here's the thing. He's making his magnum opus. This is going to be the game that puts him on the map. You know what game I'm talking about, of course. Yeah. Chipper and Sons Lumber Company. Everyone remember that one? No?
Yeah, I remember that. Absolutely.
So Scott made Chipper and Sons Lumber Company, and this, we don't have enough time to play it. Maybe we can play it later, okay? This game is manic, it's a little bit crazy. The UX is everywhere all at once, and the characters all, well, they have spirit about them.
Yeah.
Okay? And so the game came out, and it took months of work. But unfortunately, the game came out and it just bombed. Like the players hated it, they didn't want to play it, and it didn't sell enough copies, right? And unfortunately, like Scott had a family, and so, right? Well, this game was made for children, right? This game was made for children, but unfortunately, the players thought the characters were creepy, right? The design and movements were sometimes likened to be like creepy animatronics, right? And you can kind of see what they're talking about here. Now, we might laugh at this, but for Scott, this was a huge, huge bad deal, okay? A huge, huge bad deal. Yeah, right, because Scott had a family, and if there were no sales, if people didn't like the game, that meant hard times for people that he really cared about, okay? Also, Scott was a religious person, and games were personally his way of sharing the joys of his faith. But instead of sharing joy, well, it shared other stuff, right? Fear, terror. And so people said, Scott, your characters are creepy. They're like animatronics. It's no good, okay? And that was really tough feedback to take, right? So Scott took this feedback and he just said, I can't handle it, right? This is too much, and I'm gonna quit game development. And he did. He gave up game development, and no one could blame him, right? Feedback is tough to take, especially when you pour your heart and soul into something. So no, that's how it goes sometimes. But Scott gave up game development, and during that 2 or 3 month period, he kept thinking, right? He kept thinking about that feedback, and over time, this feedback started to seem less like an attack and more like something he could use. Okay? And then a few months later, Scott came back and released this. It's a bit of a spoiler. Hello, would you play it for me? Thank you. And I remember it wasn't that, I remember when I first played this, when I first saw it, it had that same energy that Slender did. It was kind of a relatively downscoped premise, right? Pretty self-contained game. And it did have a trailer, unlike Slender, but it was still pretty, pretty humble and unassuming, okay? Five Nights at Freddy's came out and was a really big smash hit. The game, if you haven't played it, basically works like this. You are sitting in the seat of kind of a patrol room, and you are a surveillance room, and you're looking at the security camera, as you can see right here. You move your cursor down, and you can toggle a bunch of different security cameras, and you're a security guard at a Chuck E. Cheese. That should have thrown up more. Do they need that? Do they need that security person? Does anyone know if that's what?
I forgot the lore.
Yeah, does anyone know if that's realistic? I don't know. And what happens is you need to keep these animatronics from getting to you, and they will move toward you while you're not looking at them. But you can never actually see them move, okay? You go look at a camera, and they will be in a place that you didn't expect, okay? And then if they get too close to your room, you can throw down the doors, but if you fail to do that or you run out of energy, because those doors consume energy to keep them closed, then you're toast and they jump scare you, okay? And then horrible things happen. The lore is pretty gruesome, okay? But anyway, the game came out and it was a smashing success. It had how many sequels did it have? 4,
A
right?
lot.
No, 5, 6, help wanted. There are more than this. I just couldn't fit them on the slide and I gave up. Did you know there are 3 novels? One Hollywood film? This one is, I've been saying it's supposed to come in 2020 forever. I wonder how much longer I'm going to have to say that. Anyway, Scott, of course, is an actual person, Scott Cawthon, a very private person. I've tried to get him to speak to 494 for a while. In 2013, Five Nights at Freddy's came out, and it became a genuine smash hit, right? Absolute smash hit. I have one of the plushies at home. It really was a smash hit that was born of indie horror. The community that had been making those kind of low-budget, quick and dirty, awesome indie horror games had something they could point to and say, wait a second, we can really have an impact. And maybe they already knew that, but now it was for sure, okay? I want to give you history of another person, though, who in 2013 was doing something rather special, okay? In 2013, a studio called Pig Farmer Productions produced a game called Babysitter Bloodbath. Has anyone played this game or heard of it? Right? This is a very retro game, and it is a game that kind of channels these really cool B-movie vibes. It knows it's a little bit cheap, and it says that's the point, right? And let me see if I can get the trailer in here going. Oh, this is such a cool trailer. I love this. Oh my gosh. Does that feel retro, or what? It's an example of a developer that is really kind of embracing their limitations, right? They don't have the best textures, maybe they don't have the best 3D models, but that's okay, okay? And they're gonna throw interesting filters on, they're gonna do interesting things with their camera, they're gonna surprise you with their gameplay to keep things interesting. Babysitter Bloodbath, I'm not sure if it was very successful or not. I played the game. Ooh, that game's a very hard game to play. It's very unpolished, but this is a developer who would not give up, okay? Because you probably actually know them for a different name. Their name is Puppet Combo. Has anyone heard of that name? Right? They are a very prolific kind of indie slasher horror developer, and maybe if you've been watching a lot of Let's Plays, you've seen this game, Power Drill Massacre, okay? And it retains that kind of B-movie vibe. You can see that in their cover art, and I want to show you this trailer as well.
If your car breaks down, or you get lost in the woods, stay away from the house at the top of the hill, because something evil lurks inside, behind every door, around every turn. And if you hear somebody behind you, whatever you do, don't turn around. The Power Drill Massacre.
All right. There you go, right? And wow, like this game really scared a lot of people. There are some wonderful Let's Plays on YouTube of this. And this developer would actually start a Patreon and would go on to create like tens of impressive, very scary horror games. And you know, like that really loud power drill? Some of you may have been complaining, Austin, why do you have the volume up like that? That's the game, right? That's the game. They do not care if they blow out your eardrums. They are going to make things very loud. They are not playing by the same rules that a AAA dev might. They actually became so successful that they created a publishing arm called Torture Star Video. That's pretty gnarly sounding. I talked to Public Combo midway through Greek Tragedy's development, showed him the game, and essentially my game was not bloody enough. Like, my game is cartoony because I like cartoons, and like I can't go too gory because I'm a public civil servant. And so it just wasn't going to be a very good fit, but who knows, maybe in the future. Their most recent game is Murder House, an Easter-themed horror game, fantastic, very bloody, out on Nintendo Switch, family Nintendo Switch console. So anyway, so these developers, right, Slender and Five Nights at Freddy's kind of blew the door open, and a ton of developers started making really awesome games. In fact, one of them was made locally, right? Who's played Sagebrush in here, right? A phenomenal, kind of very thoughtful adventure game with a horror theme. You're exploring a cult compound and trying to figure out what happened to all the victims who were there, okay? Nate Berenz made this game in Ipsy, and it is fantastic. I encourage you to play it and then go say hi to him, okay? One of my friends, Blake McKinnon, made a game called Sleigh Bells on IGDA, and he's made a bunch of games, right, in this style. But you started to see a lot of games of this type, like PS1 era aesthetics coming out with a very retro vibe, and they had these really interesting ideas for them. The kind of ideas and gameplay that would never sell 10 million copies like Capcom needs to, okay? But they could, you know, they could go do interesting experimental things, and they could hang their hat on that instead, okay? By the way, indie horror really did go ham. There were 100+ horror games released today, okay? We got a Kermit the Frog one, we got a House of Horror, we got Fading Light, Litany, Void, Experiment, Lord of Doors, right? Okay, these are probably mostly not that great, but all of them will have at least some little interesting idea that you might be able to take away, okay? Right? And my goodness, there are so many games. We're going to click on Squidward's prediction. And we're going to open that up, okay, and see that it was indeed made just a day or so ago, okay? Has a bunch of nice reviews, and a bunch of people played this game, right? If you want to make a quick horror game and you want other people to play it, well, this is a genre where people will do that, right? People trying to start their own Let's Play channels. People trying to find the next Five Nights at Freddy's, they'll play your game, okay? Even if it is quickly made, even if the graphics aren't the best, okay? It is such a fun genre to be making stuff in. This is the, does anyone know what this is? Anyone have any idea? Okay, this is a bunch of itch.io screenshots, and these are all the games that released before 3 p.m. On the February 18th, 2021. And that's actually the day that we launched our Greek Tragedy demo first. And you can see it right there. That was a bit brutal, because you have to compete all of these games, outcompete them all. I think we ended up coming in like second place for the day. But this is scary stuff, right? Our own Nathan Hanish once told me that modern game development feels often like yelling into the void. And on that day, I felt that hard, okay? But the good news is for consumers, right, there's so much interesting stuff to play, and while it's not all the best, there are a lot of gems in there. And even in the games that aren't gems, there are little nuggets of gems inside of even those games, okay? So right now, that's where we are, right? We had some big games that really brought indie horror into the limelight, and then we had a bunch of fantastic developers show up, create some really great stuff, sometimes a series of great horror games. And now, they're just everywhere, right? It's luxurious. I don't really play a ton of AAA games anymore. When I really want to go play some games, I'll just open up itch and I'll start looking through horror games, right? Those can still surprise me. I know what the latest Resident Evil is going to have, but on itch, I don't know. I have no idea. Anything could happen, and that's why I love it, okay? I want to talk about the advantages that horror can bring to indie teams as we run toward the end of our session here, okay? One thing that's very powerful for horror games is that limited visibility is not seen as a mistake. It's not seen as a technical issue or a design defect. For horror, it is the point, okay? You might be used to games with beautiful aesthetics in them, and those games often want to, light those aesthetics up so you can see them. But if you don't have a massive team of several hundred people and $50 million in budget and 2 years to work on the game, well, you can't achieve these beautiful aesthetics, okay? So what can we do? Well, we can put a filter, like a PS1 era filter over our screen. We can make the resolution low. We can make the vertices pop when you get near them and move around and shift, right? If it's consistent, if it isn't a mistake, it's an art style, okay? And so that's extremely powerful, right? It can still be creepy. One really cool thing about Five Nights at Freddy's, the models are really awesome, and a lot of effort went into those, clearly. But this game doesn't have a whole lot of animation, unless you're getting jump scared. And you can bet that saved Scott Cawthon a ton of time, okay? He just has to warp the models around, no animation required. Made things tractable for a small team, okay? Bye. If you look at Slender, right, many of the aesthetics actually don't look that gorgeous, okay? They're blurry, they're low poly, they're probably just grabbed off an asset store or an open source repository, Sketchfab maybe, I don't know, okay? But when the light isn't on them, the flashlight only allows you to see a little bit of it at any given time. And you're always looking for Slender Man. You're not really paying attention to the semi-cheap aesthetics, right? The darkness hides the problems, our low budget, right? The darkness helps us really stretch our budget a lot. And this can still be extremely scary. I wish this monitor was calibrated a bit better, maybe, because this looks terrifying on my monitor right here. That's still a little bit creepy, right? Anyway, as it turns out, this game has a daytime mode you can unlock. Yeah, you can unlock a daytime mode if you beat this game several times, I think, and under certain circumstances. And I have to tell you, oh, it doesn't work very well, right? This daytime mode reveals just how important the darkness is. The limited visibility really makes this game sing. It's an important part of it. When you take that away, the game, its atmosphere kind of falls apart quite a bit, okay? Other games, right, Fear will put like a blur over the screen, right? Or they'll only give you a short glimpse of the thing that's stalking you, right? Amnesia will give you a very clear view of the monster heading toward you, but the monster moves quickly, and so you must turn away. It'll also do this kind of bullet blur as well. You never get too long to look at a monster. If you look at any of these monsters too long, then you die, right? You freak out, the screen goes crazy. You remember how when you looked at Slender Man, what would happen? Static, right? Why did they do that? Yes?
So that way you couldn't stare at the model?
Bingo. Because the longer you stare at this model right here, the less it looks scary and the more it looks kind of goofy, right? But if they can make sure that you're only going to look at the model from a distance, and they've got darkness to hide it, and if you look at it, you can only look at it for a second or two, then they can make this work, okay? I want to talk a little bit about plot consistency. This might be a little bit controversial, but one of the really interesting things about Five Nights at Freddy's when it came out, we have this idea, right? We fear what we do not understand. And when Five Nights at Freddy's came out, there were a lot of interesting little Easter eggs and things that were hard to explain inside of it. As it turns out, on occasion, in Five Nights at Freddy's, you can see a Golden Freddy poster. It's very rare, and if you see it, when you go back to your office, you'll see Golden Freddy sitting there. And if you look at it for too long, and don't fail to look away, it'll crash your game, and there you go. What on earth is Golden Freddy? Does anyone know what it is? Does anyone know why this happened, or why it is here? Right? The lore for Five Nights at Freddy's goes pretty deep. But in this first game, there were a lot of things that were simply not explained, okay? Right? It gave rise to really popular YouTubing channels that try and figure these things out, that follow the clues and try and figure out what's going on in the game, right? The game theorists being one of the famous ones. We figured out what Golden Freddy is. I don't think they actually did. But the thing is, like in horror, you don't have to specify everything. Your plot doesn't have to have everything filled in, right? You can throw in scary stuff and you can come up with an explanation later if you want to, right? Or you can let the game theorists come up with the explanation for you, all right? Make that a part of your community, right? Them figuring out what you're doing, right? In other words, you don't necessarily have to invest a ton or as much in making sure your plot is consistent and that there are no plot holes when you've got a community that is ready and expecting to fill some of those in for you. I'm a little bit salty about it. Some people love the stories of these games. I do not. These games, Elden Ring, Dead Cells, kind of famous for having story that sort of exists in the background, and they'll dole out some bits of lore to you. And maybe you connect the dots, maybe you don't. Maybe there are dots to connect, and maybe there aren't, okay? Personally, I think it's just, it's very efficient, right? I can write my entire story, I dole out pieces of it, and maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. If it doesn't, my players will fix it for me in their head, okay? And so I'm a little bit, maybe a little bit controversial, but I think that horror works really well with this, and other genres maybe not so much, okay? Another interesting advantage is in horror you can get away with a lot of things in your game design that maybe in other genres will be seen as a defect of your design. We already talked about Power Drill Massacre, and I want to say that, at least in my course, when I am talking about game design and what you should do to help players understand your game, get through your game, understand how it works, its mechanics, you generally want to have a nice, like, you know, gradual increasing difficulty curve. And whenever you introduce something new, like a stalker killer character, you want to make sure that you introduce that mechanic in a way that's relatively safe for the player to experiment and understand the mechanic, okay? Here is how you're introduced to mechanics in Power Drill Massacre. Oops. I think that might be the wrong, oh, I think that might be the wrong one. Oh, that's the trailer again. Is it, where is it? Oh, here it is. All right, here's how they introduce you to the killer for the first time. You're gonna want to be careful with your ears.
Hello, Whistling
Oh,
Wind.
no.
I'm sure you hearken only goodwill for me.
Hold on.
Come unto thee.
Anyone else grow up watching Markiplier?
I still watch
Markiplier. Yeah, I still do too. Okay, I want, okay, this will give me the right moment. Okay, this is how they introduce the killer to you in this game. Watch this.
Nope. Oh God, I hear
Yeah, okay, right? So in most games, you wouldn't want to throw a mechanic at the player just to have them quickly fail like that. But in horror, it might be a little bit different sometimes, because like the serial killer in real life isn't playing fair either, right? And so you can get away with some stuff, right? You can get away with some stuff, right? In Legend of Zelda, right, they're very careful to give you a lot of objectives, right? They help you understand essentially what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, what you're trying to accomplish, right? They do this through art, they do this through wonderful tutorials that are subtle and don't come off as too ham-fisted, right? Does anyone remember this part in Breath of the Wild right at the beginning, right? You ever think about why they put this here? The first ever Zelda game to have free-form climbing, right? Imagine you leave this cave, but you don't know that climbing is a mechanic that you can do, right? Your life is super hard until you accidentally press yourself up against a wall and discover it. They wanted to make sure that you would know climbing exists before you left the cave, and so they put this here. Wonderful guidance, very friendly, Nintendo. They don't put any enemies in here. There's no serial killer that comes out and gets things, right? And it's just very friendly, right? When they introduce you to combat, they give you a very underpowered weapon and very underpowered enemies to fight. It's all good. It's nice and friendly and cheerful. No, in horror you can do whatever you want, all right, in many cases. And being a little bit unfair sometimes is sometimes seen as being okay, as long as you're scary, okay? You can be unfair as long as you're scary. And it worked. It absolutely worked. Power Drill Massacre brought tons of views. People loved this game, and when I play it, I can never get through it. I can never get more than a couple minutes in. I love these kind of games, but it's too much for me. One last thing that I want to talk about here is player expectations. Like we saw earlier with Puppet Combo, right? Like, let's look at this, right? If you're EA and you're making Anthem, and the game comes out and it doesn't meet expectations, the expectations are high, right? Action game from a huge company, and it doesn't meet expectations, well, people are going to meme on you, right? Like, people aren't going to enjoy it, and it's going to be seen as a failure, okay? Right? And there's going to be tons of videos making fun of you. Now, if you are sci-fi and you're making Sharknado, right, a horror film that just from the cover, you know that they're just going straight for the cheese, right? Well, suddenly people like that, right? You know, it does okay, and it makes billions of dollars. I was surprised by how valuable Sharknado is as a franchise. But anyway, it's about expectations, and in the horror genre, the expectations are a little bit easier to deal with, okay? I'm not sure if you'll be able to see these, but has anyone been to Blood Bash in Jackson? Blood Bash in Jackson, a really cool horror conference, okay? Where you can get merchandise and DVDs and movies from other creators, right? Small-time indie horror creators, in this case, films. I got some films. This box art is really something, isn't it? But I saw it, and I knew immediately I had to buy it. All right? And I was down for whatever this was going to bring until I watched it. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was like I was not expecting like self-harm and stuff. Yeah, there was a bit of that going on. Another one, Undone right here. The creator has made a number of these movies and signed it for me, and that made it all the cooler. But these are, just from the box covers, you know they're not super AAA, super polished productions, but that's kind of what people like them for, right? There's an honesty to these pieces of media, right? There's a humbleness, there's a grit, right? You love to see people doing more with less resources. I love buying these kind of things and experiencing this kind of stuff, right? When it comes to horror, there's a lot of that magic too. Horror as a genre has a lot of that B-movie energy, or that B energy, where you can go out and you can create something that is schlocky or cheesy, and it isn't cheesy in a bad way. No, it's premium cheese. People want that kind of stuff, right? It's a delicacy, you know. People see this and they go crazy. They want to play it, right? Anyway, so that is, you know, that's one of the advantages that indie horror can bring to us, right? It gives us a lot of flexibility and freedom. It can allow us to do a lot of different things, okay? It can allow us to try interesting themes that no AAA publisher would ever greenlight, okay? So while Capcom might be stuck, right, with their rules, they have to make a game that's somewhat formulaic, right? They'll innovate a little bit, right, for sure, but they have to live by rules, okay? These developers don't. And that's why I find them so scary, so amazing, and so inspiring. It's why I love this genre, okay? The fact that One Night at Shrek's Hotel demo exists is absolutely amazing, right? The fact that these games that look like they have nothing to teach you, you know, they have something to teach you, okay? There are gems and really cool stuff in all these games, no matter how they look. So do me a favor, right? You know, pay me back by going to itch.io over the weekend and grab one itch.io horror game, okay? Go to that top front page, just grab one at random, okay? I do not think you'll regret it. And hopefully you'll feel the same magic I've been feeling for a few years now, okay? So thank you for my talk. If you want to contact me, you can do so at yarger@unix.edu or austin@arborinteractive.com, or just type yarger.dev to get to my link tree. If you're interested in the game I'm currently making, it is a game called Greek Tragedy. It is a horror game, kind of in the Puppet Combo vibe, but not nearly as bloody. It's cartoony, I think a little bit friendlier. But that pool at the beginning was just crushing everyone. I got to balance some of that stuff. And it's themed around a college campus, which just seems kind of appropriate. Okay. And so anyway, I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Otherwise, we'll try and get you out of here. Or sorry, we'll try and get you networking, and then we'll get out of here in like 45 minutes. Okay. So thank you all so much again. So, does anyone have any questions? And we'll just do a handful. You can ask me your questions if we don't have enough time later. Okay? Yes, in the back, the hat.
Besides networking, or not networking, besides like competition, do you think there's any large advantages to indie, disadvantages to indie work?
There is indeed a lot of competition, and that is one of the big ones for sure. Another big one is that, like I said earlier, like horror is a pretty big genre and a lot of people like it. But compared to something like action, the horror genre just isn't a good fit for a lot of people, right? There are a lot of fans of media who will say, like, you know, I'm not really into horror. It's too scary. It gets me emotionally winded up. And that's going to limit it's not the most accessible genre in the world, right? So that's going to limit the size of the market, and then when you have the competitors in the market just surging and so much talent and effort going into that, it's kind of, you're getting squeezed on both ends there. High competition, the market's a little bit smaller than other markets, so that's another difficult thing too. Yeah.
Have you seen any of the advantages or tricks of indie horror applied to other genres?
I'll need to think about that. Definitely some games who have taken the plot inconsistency angle, and I think have gotten some mileage out of it. I really do not like Elden Ring's story. A lot of people do, right? I don't have enough time to go in, find all the details of the plot, and fill that in my head, right? In a horror game, I would treat that emotionally as part of the mystery, right? Part of the story. In Elden Ring, I just feel like the story doesn't matter. It's gone. I'm never going to be able to figure this out. All the characters have the same name, basically, in Elden Ring's case. It's, yeah. I think that's one thing that they've been using for sure. Yep. Yes?
What are your thoughts on like the DreadX collection, which basically grabs a bunch of talented artists and kind of packages all of it?
It's super cool, and Nate Berenz actually made one of those. So I don't think Nate's here, but he comes on occasion. There's also, in addition to that collection, there's the Haunted PS1 demo disc, which is a very cool collection as well. And so they're so cool. I love those a lot. They're fantastic. I want to buy like a physical edition of those. Anyone? Yes?
It's more of a comment. The indie horror scene, it reminds me of a book I read called Anti-Fragile, where it talks about different types of systems and what I see in the sort of indie horror community is it's a system that would be called anti-fragile because it gains from chaos. Like
yes.
Individual games
Sure.
that make it up are fragile. You know, any particular indie game isn't going to get so popular, but because the cost is so low, everybody fails. Everybody fails faster.
Yep.
And there's an incentive for consumers to come in there and look at things out.
Yes.
The genre as a collective is able to evolve faster and stay alive.
Absolutely. It's a really, really cool community, and I really enjoy it a lot. Any other thoughts, comments? Yes?
How do you pick the games you want to play in the itch.io page? Do you just go one by one, or you like hit the random button?
Well, if I see anything involving Shrek, I'll play that. If I see anything that I think can take a popular character like SpongeBob that I like, or Shrek, or whatever, and create that, twist that, right? That hits me in nostalgia, right? And that also can hit me in horror and spookiness as well. So I like to go for that. I also personally really like to go for games that seem very contemporary, very very just quaint. So Slide in the Woods, I saw it on that big page of games and it just leapt out because it's just a slide in the woods. All right, I'm into this already. There's another very popular game on itch. I forget what it's called. But it was entirely premised, it was only about 5 minutes, entirely premised around you being thirsty at night, getting up from your bed and walking slowly to the fridge to get a drink of water. And you get your cup, and then you walk over to the fridge to start filling it at the little water dispenser, and then it'll get 1/3 of the way up, and then the fridge will lose power. You'll look around the house, and there's some spooky person outside who just pulled your power, and you have to go fix it, and then you get more water, and then things cascade from there. I really like that kind of very humble thing. Yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts? Yes.
So this is not directly related to games, but something I've noticed in recent years, over the last couple of years, is that something on YouTube called analog porn become very popular.
Analog
porn. Stuff like the back rooms, King Pixels, Local 58, Wolf Files, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very similar vibe, but for animation and stuff. Have you seen any of those?
I've played the backroom games, and I've seen films that are very much trying to feel old, right? Like the idea that you're walking down the street one day, or you're walking in the park and you uncover a disc that was buried, and you don't know what that thing is, and you're just going to put it in and find out, and it's this crazy lost game that's cursed, right? And that's I think that's the plot to Inscription, actually. Anyway, yeah, I really like the media that tries to be old and tries to feel like it's a lost game or a lost video or something like that. That's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome stuff. Super cool. And in fact, hold on. If you go to Umicon, yep. If you go to next week,
Yes.
go to Umicon.
Yeah, the panel.
Oh, fantastic. My team member, Kyle Sutherland, on Greek Tragedy, will have physical editions of Greek Tragedy that look like this, that you can buy to get the alpha version of the game that is not finished yet, but you'll get the full version too. Okay, we'll send that to you later. Anyway, thank you all so much for coming to our presentation and to the IGDA as well. So a quick thought, does anyone, as we wrap up, does anyone have any final community announcements to make? Anything they want to shout out? Any upcoming events you want us all to know about? In the back?
So we have a couple positions at LTU. We're looking for different professors for 3D arts and for just game development in Unreal Engine preferable, but if some Unity positions also available.
Fantastic.
So if you're interested in teaching at LTU, if you have any 3D experience, of course, it's requirement. I got pamphlets here.
Excellent. Yes, LTU is expanding a lot right now. A phenomenal program, awesome faculty. It's going to be awesome seeing that program the next few years. So thank you very much. Any other comments or community announcements? Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll probably be here for about maybe 20 more minutes. Please meet the people around you, connect with them. Any of the speakers today, ask them questions, comments. You'll exchange LinkedIns if you want to, if you're businessy. And then we're going to probably head out and get some food, probably at a Frida Petito's downtown. Okay, we'll take a walk. Yeah?
Yeah, unfortunately I have to go pretty soon, but does anybody have any feedback on the Dev Lounge? Did it work for you? Do you have any suggestions for other things to do? Yeah, Jack.
It wasn't very clear where we were supposed to set up, or having a dedicated space would be.
Okay, yeah, we were just kind of wherever, but yeah, okay. And probably having power would be useful as well. Yeah, power. Yeah, is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah.
Awesome. Any other ideas? Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say it was fun. I had fun.
Cool. Yeah.
It was really nice getting to see everyone's games being showed off.
Awesome. Cool. That's what we're hoping for. Yeah.
I would love to show stuff off, but I don't have a good laptop, and I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat.
That's
so
interesting.
There would be some way to get other laptops or something.
I wonder if we could have people kind of sign up and say hey, I'd be willing to let somebody run a thing on my laptop.
Yeah, potentially we could find equipment for that purpose.
A couple of random things, I think having TVs where people can plug into easily. I don't know if we're allowed to access these.
Oh yeah.
But I think that is great. And then I don't know if anyone has Steam Decks, but you can just sideload your games onto those.
Yeah.
It's really good for this sort of event. So bring your Steam Deck and then just have an executable file that thumb drive. You can just put it on.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good.
I want to ask, will there be another game dev launch for the next IDG?
I think we're just gonna do it from now on. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, this was, you know, it grew out of something that we did at IndieCade. There's a part of the conference at IndieCade that I ran for many years called Indie Exchange. There was anybody who had submitted a game to IndieCade was allowed to come to this one-day conference for free beforehand, and we did this game tasting where it's just like, yeah, you can just reserve a table and set up your laptop and show your game. And we wanted to kind of do that here too, because, yeah, it's just
awesome.
really cool to see what people are working on. Yes?
I wasn't aware that there was a deadline. Could you let everyone know in case?
Yeah, we announced
I
it
messed
a
that
little
up.
late, but
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, but it's gonna be like 6 o'clock every time. Oh, and next month we're not on the 4th Thursday because that's Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are meeting on the 3rd Thursday.
We are.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. So don't come on Thanksgiving because we're not gonna be here.
It's one big
Yeah.
So again, we'll be 1 week early.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you everybody who joined us on Twitch. We'll see you next month on the 3rd Thursday of the month. And yeah, thank you everybody for coming on out.